Hi, welcome back, everyone. Now we're going to talk about my favorite topic, leadership, and progress into positive leadership as well. So what is leadership? Best practices in transformational leadership include modeling the way, inspiring a shared vision, challenging the process, enabling others to act, and encouraging the heart. That is my favorite definition. It's straight from Cousins and Posner. We'll be looking at their two books on the topics, credibility and the leadership challenge. But this is the 5 steps that I've always taken to be the foundation of good leadership. So like I said, Cousins and Posner, they've been writing books for the past 30, 40 years, I believe. This was one of their initial offerings, credibility. And they said that credibility is the foundation of leadership, and the foundation of credibility in turn is honesty. They've been polling people for, like I said, 30, 40 years. And the question they ask is, what would it take for you to follow willingly, follow a leader into an unknown future? And these are the answers that come out consistently year after year. 87% of people chose honesty as one of their top picks. Then we had looking forward at 71%, inspiring at 68%, and competent at 58%. So these were, so by far, the one thing that people are looking for in a good leader is honesty. Now we're talking about personal resilience here. How does that apply? Well, I think it's a great starting point, right? When you start from a place of honesty, that resonates through your thoughts and your emotions. People can pick up on that. And when they resonate with you, you create more of that resilience. Another concept in positive leadership and leadership in particular is caring about the greater good, right? Is caring about something. So this is a system that was put forward by Jim Collins in Good to Great. He talked about the concept of level 5 leadership. The very top tier of leadership is a combination of humility, being soft on the people, and determination, being hard on the problem. When you put those two things together, the power of and, you get that magic level 5 leadership. So caring about something bigger and greater than ourselves is a very important part of positive leadership as well as resonance. Okay, what do leaders do? So this goes back to the leadership challenge by Cousins and Posner. These 5 practices that we talked about already. Modeling the way, that is having a really good understanding of who you are as a leader with authenticity and honesty. Inspiring a shared vision. This, by the way, model the way aligns with the discover in the Dream Master Key. Inspire a shared vision aligns with the reach. Okay, so that's about having a vision of the future. Challenging the process, breaking things down into components. That's the engage and elaborate. Enabling others to act is the act. And then encouraging the heart is measuring, monitoring, and motivating. So the 5 practices of exceptional, exemplary leadership fits neatly into the Dream Master Key. Go figure. That's how it was designed. And from there, we transition into positive leadership more specifically. You know, I could have called my system a bunch of different things. Resonant Leader is what some of my previous mentors have called it. Boyatzis and McKee, people that I've worked with in Cape Cod Institute. Their system, Becoming a Resonant Leader, is premised on the kind of similar to mine, on some positive emotions. So hope, mindfulness, compassion, gratitude, playfulness shows up in there. Go figure that the only one that doesn't really show up in the top 10 from Barbara Fredrickson is mindfulness, which is, but it fits in neatly into the positive leadership because I included it in positive psychology. So their system is based on these principles, very similar to mine, in that how you show up as a leader has a profound impact on how others are going to feel, think, behave, and perform. Okay, because emotions are contagious. Now, here's some of the breakdown that they went through. And all of this, this is me and Annie McKee in Cape Cod in 2015. I was there for a one-week workshop with Annie and several other learners in positive leadership development. In their book, they look at some common myths of good leadership. One of them is that smart is good enough. Another is that your mood doesn't really matter all that much. And the third is that great leaders thrive on constant pressure. Like that, right? The thumb down, pressure on the head, on the nose, right? And that's just not true. So what they discovered in their research is that IQ is simply a baseline for good leadership. It's a good place to start. But the real game changer is in emotional intelligence and social intelligence. That's what separates great leaders from good leaders. And self-awareness in that area. So emotional intelligence, look, same authors here, Richard Boyatzis, Annie McKee. So the same people I got to work with in Cape Cod, along with Daniel Goldman, talked about primal leadership and emotional intelligence in the workplace. And these are the 4 steps that they put forward in their book, Primal Leadership. The first step in emotional intelligence is to understand your own emotions, is to be self-aware. There's that word again, right? Most important leadership challenge of the 21st century, self-awareness. What's going on? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Right? What are my strengths? What are my beliefs? What are my values? How is that impacting my state of emotions? Then we have self-management. When something happens, what's our ability to control our emotions? Right? To calm down, to relax, to stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system. Take deep breaths, meditate, so on. Social awareness, understanding the state of emotions of other people, looking around people that you're with, what are they feeling? What can I pick up on their faces that's telling me how they're doing? And then managing those relationships as the final step. So great book. I highly recommend this one as well. Here's a look at emotional intelligence in terms of a system. So we get into self-awareness feeds into self-management. And then from a social perspective, all of this feeds into relationship management. Very, very important. So the second myth, your mood does not matter. Well, guess what? Emotions are contagious. We are social animals. That's how we're wired. That's how we're designed, right? If we walk into a room of angry people, it won't take long before we're pretty much feeling the same way, because we are wired, we are designed to pick up on those emotions and mirror even those emotions. So the authors here talk about positive emotion attractors and negative emotion attractors. Positive emotion attractors lead to what they call resonant leadership and a happy, healthy, productive workplace. Now, I would argue that this applies to your more immediate circles as well, like your family, like the work that you do in your community, your church, whatever activities you're part of. NEA, on the other hand, which is negative emotional attractor, creates dissonance. Dissonant leadership leads to fearful, toxic, non-productive workplaces. During our debrief today with some of our participants, we talked about the least resonant person, and a lot of them spoke about their bad bosses that I do in another exercise. I do a good boss, bad boss exercise. And I hear the same stories all the time. It's this fearful, toxic, non-productive environment. that seems to be created on purpose by people that have bosses that have a certain way of leading, which is this dissonant style. Third myth, great leaders thrive on constant pressure. Not so. There's a source of stress that's unique to managers and leaders, and that's the power stress, because they often get caught in between. They have to take care of other people. And this leads to the sacrifice renewal cycle that all leaders go through. Here's a look at it here, is we have stimulus that happens, goes into the system. Depending on how we respond, we can respond with resonant leadership, is to renew ourselves, or to deteriorate in the face of the same challenges. So our ability to renew ourselves through resilience practice, what we're talking about in this workshop, has a tremendous impact on your own personal mastery, the me in the me, we, us plus, the we, the us, and the plus. Okay, it's a necessary ingredient. Those 5 batteries of light that I talked about, renewing the spirit, the mind, the body, the relationship, and the environment on a daily basis. Recharge those batteries, because that's the only way you're going to get through the sacrifice renewal syndrome. Here's a picture of me and Richard Boyatzis here. This is my good friend Tammy Kamanchuk here. She doesn't like this picture because she had her eyes closed, but it's the best shot that I had. Mitra and I were talking about earlier about this picture, how through the practices that we're presenting to you in this workshop, look at the difference between my face in, this is 2014, and today we are 2022, right? So that's 8 years ago. She says, you look like you're aging in reverse. You look better today than you look back then, right? So that's a factor of, tomorrow we'll talk about the physical needs of human beings, right? But we'll also talk about the 7 spiritual laws and the mindfulness characteristics as well. By embracing all of the practices that I'm teaching you in this workshop, I believe that's the reason that I look the way I do today compared to what I did 8 years ago. I think I look younger. It's kind of a cool thing to reverse your aging. So intentional change, that's what the entire resonant leadership system is all about, is that significant sustainable change occurs only when people engage in a process of intentional change. Identify what it is that you want to change, right? So if you look at the Dream Master Key, where I'm at today, take inventory. Who, what, where, when, why. Then you look at your reach, that's your discover. What do you want? That's the big why. And then you build a plan. That's the intentional change. How do I get from discover to reach? Is I develop a plan, I develop a strategy. And that's what we're going to work on tomorrow, is your very own personal resilience plan, your own strategy for building personal resilience. Okay, understanding where you're at, where you want to be in 3 years, and developing a resilience strategy to get from here to there. So I hope you're able to join us for that portion of the workshop. Here's something very interesting that has nothing to do with Richard Boyatzis or Annie McKee. I came across it later on. It's a slide that reflects happiness in the now, and it's based on Happiness, the movie, which was on Netflix a few years ago. I don't know if it's still on there or not, but a cute little movie where they travel all over the world to look and measure at the happiness that people had in India, China, South America, North America, Hawaii, around the world. And what they discovered through their research is that about 50% of our level of personal happiness is hardwired, okay? It's genetics, it's how we were born, probably impacted by our early life as well. So I talked about limiting beliefs being programmed into us before the age of 7. A lot of those are very difficult to change. But for most people, 50% of their level of happiness is what we call hardwired, very difficult to change. Another 5 to 10% is based on the environment. So it didn't really matter that much where they were living. You know, whether they were in India, China, North America, South America. Only 5 to 10% of happiness is based on where you live. So clearly, 45 to 55 to 50 to 55% of happiness, the green area on this slide, is a choice. You get to choose. Okay, so choosing happiness in the now is up to you. You make that choice. You build daily practices to manufacture those positive emotions, that happiness in your daily life. And it stays with you for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, and so on. You build it up, you recharge those batteries every day, but it's a choice. And why not make that choice? When you choose happiness in the now, all the other good stuff will follow. It's not, I'll be happy when I'm successful. No, I'll be successful once I reach happiness. Go for the happiness now, and good things will follow you. Okay, so here's a look at intentional change theory. We have a passion here, calling. All of this stuff feeds in. So your values, your philosophy feeds into the dream and the change that you want to occur. And then we have hope, core identity. It's all impacted by this. We tend to build our self-efficacy, our skills in certain areas. Optimism comes into play, right? So positive thinking, positive emotions, and we go from our current state to our ideal self as a result. Everything is going towards that desired feature, which is what we work on tomorrow. Is what does a clear, concise, strong vision of the future for myself look like? We'll talk about some tools for doing that. All right, so we're up for the last practice of the day. This is called the inspiring conversation. We will set you up in teams to do this, so you'll take turns being the coach and the coachee. And here's the questions. You also have a toolkit in your, you also have a handout in your toolkit. It's called the Boyatzis handout. I learned this from the Cape Cod Institute. Richard Boyatzis gave us a set of exercises to do, and some of these are captured in here. So we use this as a guideline for conducting what we call an inspiring conversation. I've actually done this with employees in the past, where I give them the toolkit. I say, go work on this for a week, and we'll come back and we'll have an inspiring conversation. And I walk them through these questions. I said, who are you? What do you want? What are you grateful for? What's your purpose? You may recognize that as the 4 soul questions from Deepak Chopra. Very powerful questions. Another question is, what does your ideal life look like 3, 10, even 15 years into the future? 3, as I mentioned before, to me is the perfect number to start with, because it's far enough out that it can be inspiring, but yet not so long that you get lost in the fuzzy future. Okay, and also it's very easy to overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 3 years. So what does your ideal life look like 3, 10, even 15 years into the future? One of the things we'll talk about tomorrow is the perfect day. What does the perfect day look like to you? Well, for me, it includes waking up between 5 and 6 o'clock every morning after a good night's sleep next to the woman I love. Then it's meditating first thing in the morning. It's working for 3 hours. It's taking a 2-hour lunch break, including another meditation, food, and exercise. It's working another 3 hours in the afternoon. And then it's easing into an evening practice of learning or spending quality time with friends and family at that point. That's the perfect day to me, right? Now, it might change on whether I'm conducting a workshop out of town or whether I'm on vacation, but that's basically the structure of my day regardless. I follow that same pattern. The time slots may change, but the sequence stays the same. If you won the jackpot lotto max, what would you do? If you found out you had 1 year to live, what would you do? What do you want others to remember you for when you move on? Okay, some very powerful questions to get you thinking. In the toolkit, there's also some other cool exercises like 27 things you want to do before you die, your dream job, and then there's a very important part to the exercise is defining what your values are. That's the very last exercise in the toolkit. So I'm going to give you some time to have a look at that toolkit. We'll start with half an hour. Then we will team you up with an individual. So complete what you can of the package. You probably won't be able to complete all the exercise, but pick one that you like, 1 or 2 or 3 that you like, complete it, and then have this conversation with your teammate. So here are some tips for coaching. And interestingly enough, to stay positive is part of personal resilience. So you're building personal resilience in yourself and the other at the same time here. Stay positive, right? So stay in a positive state of mind. That's both thinking and emotions. Ask open questions. Who, what, where, when, why, instead of, did you do this or that? Is a closed question, is a yes or no answer, or just one of the 2 responses. You want to ask an open question. Well, why is it that you think that was important to you? That leads to more dialogue, deeper dialogue. Ask for clarification when you don't understand something. I didn't get that point. Can you help me understand? Paraphrase is tell the other person what you heard in your own words. It's not repeating exactly what they said, but what's your understanding of what they said in your own words? Differentiate between ability and motivation. They are 2 different things. Can I, or do I want to? And then never steal other people's leadership challenge, right? I learned this from Ian Chisholm years ago and Bob Chartier when they did a workshop on learning organizations. And they told us never steal other people's challenge. When you're doing coaching or any kind of facilitation, you have to let them grow into that idea, that role. They have to figure things out for themselves. You can answer questions, you can assist, but don't do it for them. Okay, let them do it. We've got half an hour for your own reflection. We have a half hour with your teammate, and then we come back for Q&As at the end of the day. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 1 hour.